Arman sat by the window of his small apartment, staring at the city lights that flickered like distant memories. The burden of his past mistakes weighed on his shoulders like an invisible chain. He had once been full of dreams, a young man with aspirations of success, but one wrong decision had shattered everything. 5 years ago, he had trusted the wrong people, invested in the wrong business, and lost not just his money but his reputation. His family had distanced themselves, friends had disappeared, and the once confident man had been reduced to a shadow of himself. Every night, regret whispered in his ears, reminding him of what he had lost. One evening, as Arman walked through the crowded streets, his eyes met those of an elderly man sitting on a park bench. The man had a calm demeanor, as if he had mastered the art of inner peace. Arman hesitated but felt drawn to him. Lost in thought, the man asked, his voice gentle yet firm. Arman sighed. Lost in regrets. The man smiled knowingly. Regrets are like closed doors. You keep staring at them, hoping they will open again. But the real key to freedom is understanding that new doors exist, you just have to turn around. Intrigued, Arman sat down beside him. But what if your mistakes define you? The man chuckled. Mistakes don't define you. What you do after them does. Let me tell you a story. He introduced himself as Ibrahim and began his tale. Once, there was a great king named Ruhan. He ruled with wisdom, but in his arrogance, he made a grave mistake. He betrayed the trust of his people. His kingdom crumbled, and he was exiled. Ruhan wandered for years, drowning in regret, convinced that he was unworthy of redemption. One day, he met a blind monk who was planting saplings in a barren land. Ruhan asked him, "Why plant trees when you may never see them grow?" The monk replied, "Because life is about what you leave behind, not what you lost. You may have made mistakes, but as long as you breathe, you can still plant something new." Realizing the wisdom in those words, Ruhan stopped dwelling on his past. He worked tirelessly, helping villages grow, and eventually, the same people who had once banished him welcomed him back, not as a king, but as a leader reborn. Arman listened in silence, his heart pounding. "So, you're saying I should stop focusing on my failures and start building something new?" Ibrahim nodded. Exactly. Redemption isn't about erasing mistakes, it's about transforming them into lessons. That night, Arman couldn't sleep. The story of Ruhan echoed in his mind. He decided he wouldn't let his mistakes dictate his future any longer. The next morning, he made a list, things he had lost, things he could still rebuild, and things he could create anew. He realized that while his past had taken away his wealth, it hadn't taken his ability to learn, to grow, and to start over. He reached out to an old friend who was running a startup and asked for a chance to contribute. He enrolled in online courses to upgrade his skills. Most importantly, he forgave himself. Weeks turned into months, and Arman started seeing progress. His confidence returned, and for the first time in years, he smiled without bitterness. One day, he gathered the courage to visit his family. Standing at their doorstep, he felt the old shame creep in, but he reminded himself of Ruhan's story. When his mother opened the door, her eyes filled with tears. "Arman," she whispered. "I'm sorry for everything," he said. But I want to make things right. She pulled him into an embrace. We never stopped loving you. We were just waiting for you to forgive yourself first. Years later, Arman stood on a stage, addressing a hall full of young entrepreneurs. He was now a successful business consultant, guiding others to avoid the mistakes he once made. He ended his speech with the same words Ibrahim had told him: regrets are closed doors. Stop knocking. Turn around, and you'll find new doors waiting for you to open them. As the audience applauded, Arman looked up and whispered, "Thank you, Ibrahim," knowing that the old man's wisdom had given him a new life. Moral: mistakes don't define you, your actions after them do. Let go, learn, and move forward, because redemption is always possible.